We designed Waypoints so that a team leader could be ready for any programmatic review within 5 minutes. And this is a big value proposition because these team leaders were spending 1 to 2 days creating PowerPoint slides every quarter, which is something I think a lot of government customers could resonate with.
Oh, yeah.
And being able to switch from that PowerPoint creation mode to being able to status your items within 5 minutes was something that gave the team leaders back time. And so I think that was one of the major benefits to rolling out Waypoints, is that these team leaders could be ready for programmatic review almost continuously.
What if the biggest barrier to mission success in a multi-team software program isn't the technical complexity at all? It's the coordination noise. Large defense programs face a coordination problem. Major goals require teams to integrate and meet objectives on time and in budget, and traditional approaches often fall short. Small programs with decoupled teams have the ability to rely on ad hoc planning and roadmaps, and large programs with complex dependencies often resort to massively integrated master schedules with 50,000 or more elements. In aviation, Waypoints guide pilots through complex flight plans, providing some structure but maintaining flexibility. One of my SEI colleagues has adapted this concept to solve one of defense acquisition's most persistent challenges, which is synchronizing dozens of interdependent teams without drowning in administrative noise and administrative overhead. Welcome to the SEI Podcast Series. My name is Eileen Wrubel, and I'm the Technical Director for Smart Software Acquisition here at the SEI. Today, I'm pleased to sit down with Kevin Dooley, a Senior Agile Transformation Leader at the SEI and co-developer of the Waypoints Framework with Air Force Major Adam Satterfield. Welcome, Kevin. Thanks for joining me today.
Thank you, Eileen. I'm happy to be here.
So let's start, let's roll back just a second and start by telling our audience a little bit about ourselves. Can you talk to me a bit about the path that brought you to the SEI and the work that you're doing here? I think our audience is going to be very interested in your role as an Agile transformation leader who's embedded within an important software program. So you can talk a little bit about your role and what gets you up in the morning excited about it.
So I've spent my entire career in the defense sector, and I am coming up on 4 years with the SEI. And prior to that, I was a civil servant working in the F-35 program office. So I definitely have a pedigree of knowing what it's like working in the government and knowing what it's like, some of the challenges and some of the bumpiness that happens in that acquisition journey.
And so this is the work that you've been doing on Waypoints is particularly interesting to me because as part of my journey at the SEI way back into the 2010, 2012, 2014 years and beyond was working with policy owners in the Air Force and with acquisition programs at getting our hands around what does Agile software development mean? What does organizational agility mean? And how can we adapt the acquisition system to be more aligned with modern software engineering methods, so that we can do the best of getting capability out of software in rules and structures that aren't built for legacy hardware. So this is particularly interesting to me, the idea of Waypoints as the structure with the built-in flexibility. Yeah,
absolutely. And even though my title is a Senior Agile Transformation Leader, I am certified in SAFe. So I'm a SAFe practice consultant. So a lot of my work is in the Agile space, but Lean is really my passion. And so it's not that Agile and Lean are competing, but Waypoints is really a Lean practice. It's a way to smooth out the bumpiness of the journey that so many government customers often face.
So let's talk about that. Can we talk about the catalyst for bringing Waypoints to life when you and Major Satterfield first started considering these ideas together for the program you worked with?
So there's a sheet of paper hanging up in Major Satterfield's cube, and it's kind of the origin of Waypoints. So he had a meeting with the colonel who was in charge of the program, and he wrote down on this sheet of paper the 3 requirements that the colonel gave, which is Waypoints needs to be simple, it needs to be led by the team leaders, and it needs to visualize the work. And so those 3 things were the bare minimum requirements of how do we get all the teams in this organization to visualize their work, how do we get them to use it in a very simple way, and how do we get the team leaders to own the process so that they can drive the teams to start collaborating.
And pushing that goes with pushing the authority to where the information lives, having the team leaders own it because nobody knows your work better than you do.
That's right. And
Right.
oftentimes with change initiatives in organizations, if it's top-down directed,
Right.
it can seem kind of pushed. There may be some resistance. And so having it be owned by the team leaders and having that ownership at that level was something that made the adoption successful.
So can we talk now more specifically about Waypoints, what the components are and how it works?
Yeah. So we start by anchoring on a major programmatic goal. And oftentimes this is something that we want to achieve in maybe 2 or 3 years. It's something that would be newsworthy, something that is going to get published. And so in order to hit that goal, that major goal, it's going to take the effort of multiple teams coming together in order for that to be successful so that we can have a good news story published in the media. So the very first thing we want to do is have each team define what they think their definition of done is. So even just having the teams state their contribution towards that major goal often reveals some mismatches, some incorrect handoffs. And so we want all the teams to make that public of what they think that their contribution is towards that goal. The second major component is identifying the actual waypoints. So early on we had a discussion, and this is a basic question: what is a waypoint? What constitutes identifying an activity as a waypoint? And we define this as anywhere from 2 to 8 activities in a given quarter that a team will accomplish. And these are promises that the team is going to make to the rest of the organization of about 5-ish. Here are the 5 major activities that I'm going to track, I'm going to make public, and I'm going to make visible across the organization so that I have accountability. But I also have the flexibility to break down that work as needed. So identifying the major activities each quarter and making them public was one of the big components. Now, the third component is the dependency mapping. So this is really where the magic of Waypoints comes in, where you need multiple teams to complete their commitments for the quarter, but you also need the work to come together. And so that's acknowledging the upstream dependencies, things that other teams are doing that you are relying on, but also appreciating the downstream dependencies, things that your team is signing up to do that other teams need to consume. And so having that all come together and having that be visible is what makes Waypoints so powerful.
So for a massive defense program, it sounds like getting this off the ground at first had to be challenging. Can you walk us through a little bit about how you started getting the teams together and bringing them along into this cohesive Waypoints framework?
Yeah, so we started by identifying 3 early adopter teams. And so these were teams that were fluent in digital tooling, like Jira and Confluence. And so we were able to overcome that technology hurdle just from the get-go. By sitting down with these 3 teams, identifying their waypoints, identifying their upstream and downstream dependencies, we were able to, within a quarter, successfully launch them into this framework and actually demonstrate to the rest of the organization the power of visualizing their activities in these lightweight digital tools. By demonstrating this, it really created a pull effect for the remainder of the teams. They really wanted to get into the tool. They liked what they saw. And so being able to visually demonstrate the implementation of Waypoints across the organization was something that really helped adoption.
It really show the value, have the people doing the work show the value so that what you get from the rest of the community is, oh, I want some of that.
Yeah.
I want to be able to do that.
So one of the things I wanted to share was talking about the 5-minute guarantee. So we designed Waypoints so that a team leader could be ready for any programmatic review within 5 minutes. And this is a big value proposition because these team leaders were spending 1 to 2 days creating PowerPoint slides every quarter, which is something I think a lot of government customers could resonate with.
Oh, yeah.
And being able to switch from that PowerPoint creation mode where it takes sometimes up to 2 days to being able to status your items within 5 minutes was something that gave the team leaders back time. And so I think that was one of the major benefits to rolling out Waypoints is that these team leaders could be ready for programmatic review almost continuously. So that was one of the major success factors of Waypoints.
So they can pretty much answer any question at any point with the most up-to-date information and not have to pre-coordinate a meeting or argue about font sizes on a slide or worry about which version of PowerPoint they were in. They could just answer the question and then be really focused on the work that they're there to do.
That's right. Yeah.
As opposed to work that just that makes them busy to move information.
And that's exactly where we started. We started with a network drive full of PowerPoints. We weren't sure what the right location was. Different teams had them in different locations, so it was really hard to find the source of truth. So moving to a centralized system within Jira and Confluence that allowed everyone to have access. In fact, not just the team leaders in the organization, but everyone in the program has access to the source of truth. They can really see what's going on in the program. They can see what the teams are doing to contribute to these major goals that we are all trying to get around. And so making that publicly accessible to everyone in the organization was one of the big factors here.
That's fantastic. So this is a great experience that teaches us that effective program management doesn't have to require massive bureaucracy. But legacy programs often tend to equate rigor with complexity, and we've got all these massive programs that have had multi-decade lives, and there's a sort of an entrenched way of doing things. So what's the most surprising evidence, maybe it's qualitative, maybe it's quantitative, that Waypoints isn't simplifying it too much or dumbing it down, but really sharpening the right signal?
Yeah, absolutely. So we have something that we call the Iceberg model. And so when you think about an iceberg, it's a massive object, but you can only see a portion of it above the water. Now, there's an appreciation that there's a lot of details that go below the water, and those are items that the teams typically manage. But we don't need to elevate all that mass to be visible across the program. We just need to understand what's above the water, because what we found is there's cognitive overload when you try to visualize everything all at once, and that's where you get the 50,000 element IMS. That's just something that people can't wrap their head around. But when we right-size the amount of work that's above the water, that's visible across the program, that's something that most people in the organization can wrap their head around. And that's really, I think, the power of Waypoints is that we found the right size, the right amount of work that's visible without becoming overwhelming.
So are we seeing things like earlier detection of risk, faster resolution of issues, improved morale? It's better to do this work than it was before? Yeah,
you could probably summarize Waypoints as finding the train wreck before it happens. So oftentimes, and this has just been my experience, is that there are a lot of incorrect assumptions. There are handoffs that don't happen, and that's almost expected. And so Waypoints is a way to visualize the work so you can see the problem ahead of time and course correct.
Fantastic. So one of the important aspects of the work we do at the SEI is transition, right? It's taking the experiments and the results of the experiments and the results of what we do with one customer and thinking about how we can scale them for broader use and broader utility across defense programs and across the software community. So if we have a program manager who's interested in implementing Waypoints in their own team, what might be available out there now, or where should they start?
Yeah, so the first part of that would be the transition piece. And so in 2025, Major Satterfield and I, we built this framework up. We got all of the teams in the organization using it. And since then, it's been transitioned to a product owner who has even evolved it just in the past 4 months in 2026. So it's something that the organization has taken and started to run with, and we encourage that. We like it. It's becoming better than how it began. So that would be one example of how it takes off and how it can grow. For a potential new customer that is interested in Waypoints, where we get started, and this is something that I'm getting started with another major Air Force program this month, is starting just with one team, getting the team to identify their goals, identify their quarterly activities, start to surface those, make them visible, to start improving accountability, and just starting with just one team to get them into this framework and kind of try it out and see if it's the right size for them. From there, we would want to invite maybe 2 or 3 other teams and start to visualize the dependencies between the teams. And eventually, the goal would be to roll this out to the entire organization. But again, it has to show value. Right. It just won't get adopted if there's no value.
I feel like it's something. It's got to be something that you get to do, not something that you have to do.
Exactly. Yeah. What we realized early on is the leaders of the organization, they have enough to do. So we really need to take things off of their plate instead of adding to their plate. And that's something that in the major program that we rolled this out in, that's something that we were able to demonstrate.
I think you know how fond I am of saying never confuse facts with answers. And I feel like what you're doing here is taking fact noise out of the environment for the leadership so that they can really see the answers to the questions that they have that they need to understand in order to track progress and understand quality and how we're moving towards a delivery of capability.
Yeah, and I think having lived this as a civil servant, sometimes it feels like a treadmill where you're in a constant reporting cycle, and you never really have the time to actually solve the problems or achieve the goals that you want to get to, because you're just trying to keep up with the information download. So this is definitely a way to streamline that process, free up that time so that you can actually focus on the mission goals that you really need to get after.
And I think you and Major Satterfield gave a talk about this earlier this year at the department's annual Weapons System Software Summit. And so I think we can post a link to that briefing in the transcript. And I think that the two of you have been working on a couple of pieces to publish out into the broader community that talk in a little more depth. And so when those items are published, we'll get links to those and put them in the transcript for our viewers and our listeners as well.
Yeah, we were very excited that Public Affairs had cleared and allowed us to present at that conference back in January. It took 6 months to get all the signatures because it's very rare for the program that we work on to be able to publish anything about it. So being able to get on the stage and share our journey with Waypoints and what we did in 2025, that was a really big deal for us. And more recently, we have another article that's going to be coming out that's also cleared by Public Affairs that will talk about our journey that we'll look to get published.
I'm so excited for folks to be able to read more about this great work. And I think they can always reach out to you at info@sei.cmu.edu if they want to talk with you more about the work that you did and figuring out maybe if there's something that you and the SEI can help other programs with.
Yep, definitely excited. And every setting is a unique journey. Mm-hmm. So what worked in this major program that we worked on in 2025, it's going to have to be tuned. And so I think that's one of the benefits of working with the SEI is that we understand the customer environment, we understand the unique details, and it's not a one-size-fits-all for solutions. So being able to take the things that work and understand what are the unique tailoring things we need to do is something that we excel at.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, really getting at what are the contextual factors that you need to consider to tweak it into the specific instantiation, but with this really flexible framework. With this, Waypoints has waypoints, I think.
Waypoints for our waypoints.
Waypoints for waypoints. Thanks so much for sitting down to talk with me today, Kevin. I've been so excited to learn more about the Waypoints work and see as you've been working to scale this into different programs and understand how it can continue to evolve as well. So this has just been fantabulous, and I hope that we're going to get to sit down in the studio again sometime soon. We'll include links, as I said, to the conference presentation and anything else that you published in the transcript for the podcast.
Thank you, Eileen. Appreciate it.
Finally, a reminder to our audience that the SEI Podcast Series is available anywhere you get your podcasts, including the SEI's YouTube channel. If you like what you see and hear today, give us a thumbs up, and thanks again for joining us.